I can't eat exposure. Ugh. All right.
It's the Create-ors Hustle.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Create-ors Hustle, where we deal with the business of the entertainment industry. I'm Richard Chemaly and today we're looking at playing for exposure. First, thanks to our sponsors for the video below. And let's go. Memes and complaints for days as artists moan about events asking them to play for exposure, as if no other person in any other vocation has costs to endure to make people know about them. If you're in the music business, it's business, and few people get business right with no marketing. Because how do people support you if they don't know you? Accountants need to advertise, coders need to advertise, even entertainment attorneys need to make DIY industry videos to get their name out there. Yes, there are tons of people who make no effort and try to take advantage of musos, and they should be shunned. But it doesn't make the concept of playing for exposure totally bad. The trick is to get it right. So here are 5 tips to leveraging exposure and get you paid eventually. Tip number 1, scout the gig. If the audience is small, or you're the only one on the lineup, then the gig probably isn't worth it. More importantly, if there's a fee to get into the gig, but you're still not being offered any payment, probably skip it, unless it's for charity or something. Just don't discount your value. Like if ticket prices are $10 and they're expecting 100 people, then figure out what you believe your value add is. If you're 20% of the reason why people are going, then you shouldn't be afraid to ask for $200 or some proportion of it if the event overheads are high. If a gig has a backstage that is packed with people, you could do well to network and consider that gig then. If it's a charity gig, milk the exposure. Charities generally pull sweet sponsors, and sweet sponsors often have events, corporate ones, which pay artists a lot of money to gig. So it may be worth it to cultivate the opportunity to impress them. The point is, when a gig is free and offers a legitimate opportunity to grow your artist brand, it may be worth it to take it. Tip number 2, do the network. Networking is my vibe and should be to any successful artist. Yeah, business cards are very 1996, but you could get creative with stickers, gig guest books, and if you've got access to a trust fund or something, branded flash drives featuring your music and EPK. Those things work a treat. I've even seen artists get creative making their own branded beers, coasters, buffs, anything that is useful to people to keep the brand in people's heads. It's worthwhile investing in something physical that will keep your name and contact details in the minds of important people at the gig. But it's not just about stuff, it's about going out there and communicating. Find out about the sponsors beforehand and about their products and services. When you're on stage, you have massive power to punt them, and they tend to love that. Have a conversation before your set and find out if there's something that they're particularly focused on marketing and how you can make mention of that on stage. After the gig, speak to the people backstage and investigate where you can add value. It may seem counterintuitive to spend more time than is necessary at a gig that you're not being paid for, but economically, you're already there anyway, so it's basically the sunk cost. Staying there for a couple more hours will cost next to nothing extra, and if your networking skills are solid, you may get some contacts that will lead to good paid gigs. Tip number 3, place your limits over the long term. It's all good and well that you will only do 5 charity gigs in a given space of time, and it's important that you put those limits in place. New artists should obviously aim for more because they require more exposure to get established. But it's more a matter for you to prioritize your charity gigs and less for you to be a git and say, sorry, I've met my charity gig quota for the month. You shouldn't say that, by the way, rather just come up with some other excuse like you're attending the opening of your garage door. But the point is that you should limit yourself to X number of gigs, and you should do so without forcing yourself into a small amount of time. It's not a lie to say that many organizers just want you to gig free because they're poor at organizing and those gigs should be avoided. So if the organizer can't tell you who else is on the lineup, or if the event has no sponsors, or if there's just something fishy about it, you can tell yourself it's not worth spending a quota free gig on it until the organizer you have other commitments. Something about the limits is that gigs can be seasonal. So create a higher limit over a bigger amount of time. It may be that there are 3 or 4 gigs worthwhile doing in January, but nothing notable in February and March. So instead of doing 1 charity gig a month, expand your view to 12 charity gigs a year. Taking too many charity gigs can not only decrease your public worth, but also your self-worth, and that could be catastrophic for the mental well-being of any artist. So avoid putting yourself in that position. Even if you've got nothing going on that night, if the gig isn't worth your time, investigate how you can make it worth your time. Otherwise, just don't go for it. Tip number 4. Contracts are still vital. The gig may be free, but it doesn't mean that you let go of your bargaining chips. There are still things you can do and get at a free gig. Passes for your day job boss, a friend's new band getting on the lineup, a voucher from one of the sponsors you can just give out at some sort of giveaway for your band to get social media following. Anything that you can get from the gig that isn't payment is still worthy of investigation. However, it's not the primary purpose of doing a performance contract in these instances. Even with a charity gig, your reputation is still on the line. The crowd won't know it's a charity event, and even if they did, it's not like they'd care. You still need to deliver a good performance, and if you can't do that, and the sound sucks, and the lighting is bad, and the stage has a massive hole in it, in that respect, make sure that your tech rider is still in place and that it's properly signed off. While you're at it, you can also add marketing clauses compelling the event to promote your music, or the fact that you'd like to be performing, they can promote it on their social media. You can do a bunch of stuff with contracts, even for a free gig, which creates rights and obligations, and just because the gig is free, you shouldn't shy away from demanding other things that you require to put on a good gig. Ugh. Otherwise, benefit from the labor of giving your music away for free. The benefit is that even if the gig is a flop, you'd still be entitled to what you had placed in your agreement. If you didn't have an agreement in place and the gig is a flop, you'd be performing in front of a crowd of 10 people at an event where the sponsors didn't bother to arrive because the event was badly marketed. Quick punt here, it's worth getting a good legal mind to draft your performance agreement templates and spending a few bucks on getting them to explain what is in it so that you know what you're dealing with when you make changes to it. Tip number 5, milk the free gig dry. Okay. Good business in music would be to milk as much as you can, but within reason. If you're getting a paid gig, you don't exactly want to milk it hard because you'd like repeat business. So with a paid gig, you'd want to keep your relationship solid and not go overboard with the demands and extras. But if you're gigging for free, you can and should be playing with the organizer and admit to getting your pound of flesh for your performance. In most instances, good organizers would only be too glad to give you what they can afford to allay the guilt of not paying you. You may be thinking, but Chem, how do I milk something that has nothing? The answer to that is that you always can create something out of nothing. And here are some things that you can try. Ooh, these are the Milkies, where we did that thing. That's it for this episode of the Create-ors Hustle. If you liked the video and found it useful, I'm not bothered about asking you to subscribe, ring bells, or tell YouTube it's great. Just share it with your muso friends who might find it useful too. Let us know what else we should do with it in the comments below, and